Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Overwatch Weekly. I have quite a few things to cover this week. One thing is something I forgot to talk about last week, and some of the things are broader Blizzard related stories that aren't just Overwatch related, so we'll be putting those at the end. But they're both very big and very important to Overwatch, so I very much think you should stay through those as well. But let's start on a very lighthearted note. Let's take a look at the workshop stats as of May 30th, 2019. This was posted by Jeff Kaplan on the Overwatch forums, and he says the following. Wow, the response to the workshop has been overwhelming. You all are creating some amazing content. We just got some stats that I figured you'd all be interested in. Thanks so much for all this great content. First off, here are the NA and EU charts. So I'm not going to go through everything on the charts. I'll go through the top 5 games on here. But the first one is Uno. The average player is 11.3. There have been 1,556 matches played, and it has been played for 1,370 hours. Second is Flora's Lava Parkour. It's been played for a total of 1,246 hours. There have been 899 matches and an average of 8.2 players. McCree Hot Potato, 1,048 duration hours, 1,261 matches played, and 8.2 is the average number of players. You have Hammond Racing, 942 duration hours, 1,271 number of matches, and 9.5 average players. And then we have Gun Game at 940 duration hours with 1,469 matches and 8.2 average players. So this is your top 5. This is from the Global Insights Group. In NA, someone has managed to recreate Uno, the card game. Surprisingly, it is the most hours played out of any link. This may be a result of consolidation. There's only one version of Uno floating around, but hundreds of accuracy trainer variations. Workshop has been extremely well received in Korea. The most popular game mode in Korea has a total of 5,667 hours played so far, more than 4 times the top link in NA. It is called High Blood Pressure Marathon, which is a mode with no cooldowns, infinite ultimates, and some other crazy things mixed in. Here are the top Korean charts. The number 1, obviously, High Blood Pressure Marathon. Average number of players, 18.6. 4,870 is your number of matches, and 5,447 total hours. Your number 2 is RPG with Shop. That has a total of 4,858 hours. 8,994 is the number of matches, and 21 is the number of average players. Next is Infinity Stones, which has a total hours of 3,098, a total number of matches of 3,129, and 14 average players. And then we have Crossy Road at 2,873 total hours with 2,996 number of matches, and 15.1 is your average players there. That is some stats on the workshop. If you want to check out more, that is linked in the description, as well as any of the codes for any of the modes that seem interesting, or if there's any that you don't know about that I didn't read about and you just want to see some modes, see what's popular, all that, you can see that all in the description down below. Next, I have 2 interviews to talk about. The first one is one that I did not talk about, and it is an interview that Stylosa did with Jeff Kaplan. I know I talk about Stylosa a lot, but he does a lot of great interviews with people at Blizzard. And this one in particular was with Stylosa, or with Jeff Kaplan, and they talked about replays, some of the hero changes, the changes to Assault, all the things that went live on the PTR last week, or that I talked about last week. Stylosa talked to Jeff Kaplan about those. So that is linked in the description. He also did another interview. This time he did it with Keith Miron and Dan Reed. And this interview he also had with him Darwin Streams, who has been one of the top guys in making games and whatnot in the workshop. Obviously, we just talked about the workshop. But Stylosa and Darwin talked with Keith Miron and Dan Reed, 2 of the guys in charge. I believe they were the 2 lead designers of the workshop and they talked about kind of what's the future of it, the process of creating it, all that kind of stuff. Some really awesome stuff to hear from them. Really interesting stuff in terms of game development, the development of the workshop, and then also kind of features to come and some other information in there as well. So if you want to check that out, that is linked in the description down below. If you do like the workshop, I highly recommend you watch that. Just learning about the way that the game has been developed and some of the behind the scenes stuff is some of my favorite stuff to hear from developers. And I love hearing that from some of these guys from Blizzard. And I think Stylosa does it a lot. So I think he's doing some good work for us Overwatch fans. Next, I want to talk about the Overwatch League and what's new in Stage 3. They did yesterday put out an article or just a piece on the website talking about the things that are new in Stage 3. So we get the new map pool, all that kind of stuff. Obviously, with a new stage, there's going to be some other new changes as well. The patches aren't that big, which is good and bad. It's unfortunate because I think that GOATS is still going to be the meta. I don't even think, I have to say, I think it will be the dominant meta. There is nothing right now that will beat GOATS. It's that good. And getting past it is almost impossible at this point in time. It's going to be very challenging for us to see anything else that isn't GOATS. So it's unfortunate, and I really wish that wasn't the case. But that is what we're looking at. But let's take a look at everything that they have here. So the first thing is that Havana will be in the map pool. Havana, obviously, first introduced in the Storm Rising event. It's a classic escort map with plenty of twists and turns that wind through city streets and into colonial fortifications. And the map pool, we'll get into that. The order of the maps remains the same from Stage 2. So it'll be Control, Assault, Hybrid, and Escort, and then Control as the tiebreaker if needed. The map pool this time around for the controls, Lijiang Tower and Busan are being replaced by Ilios and Nepal, with Oasis remaining in the map pool. For Assault, Temple of Anubis and Hanamura are being replaced by Volskaya Industries and Horizon Lunar Colony, with Paris remaining in the map pool. For Hybrid, we have Blizzard World and Kings Row being replaced by Hollywood and Numbani, with Eichenwald remaining in the map pool. And for the escorts, we have Junkertown and Rialto being replaced by Havana and Dorado, with Watchpoint Gibraltar remaining in the map pool. There's also another little interesting thing here. The match of the week is changing a little bit. As I say here, also new this season is introduction of a fixed schedule match of the week. Throughout Stage 3, the match of the week will be played on Sunday, often as the first match of the day. In order to accomplish this, we've adapted a flex system allowing us to shift matches around to feature specific matchups, and you can see the updated Stage 3 schedule there. I don't really know what fully has changed about it. I think some of the games have been moved around slightly. I don't think New York, London was originally where it is now, but it's the kind of thing that might affect a little bit with some of the Overwatch League fan thoughts and analysis videos. Basically me saying like, oh, this game is this day, this game is that day. So always check the schedule because it'll potentially change. But right now, the first match of the week is a matchup between the New York Excelsior and the London Spitfire, and that will be on Sunday, June 9th at noon Pacific. Week 2 will be San Francisco Shock and Seoul Dynasty. Week 3 will be Dallas Fuel and the Chengdu Hunters. Week 4 will be Vancouver Titans and the LA Gladiators. And Week 5, it'll be the Florida Mayhem and the Atlanta Reign. This patch that I mentioned is patch 1.36. And that patch doesn't do a ton. It's some of the patches before that. Baptiste and Wrecking Ball have a change where if they throw the Immortality Field or use the Minefield and it lands on something that moves, it'll move with it. Obviously, Havana, that's a big thing. And for hero updates, Junkrat had increased his projectile speed. Reaper had some changes. Symmetra had some changes. But in general, that is it. Those are the only heroes that had changes. Here they say Ashe, Brigitte, Diva, Roadhog, and Torbjorn. That's not true. Those are bug fixes, if anything. 1.36 was those are all literally bug fixes. So keep that in mind. They say that that's what happened, but no, that's just not true. The final thing is league replays. And what they say about that is coming soon, you'll have the ability to replay an entire Overwatch League match from any perspective you choose, including first person, third person, and bird's eye views. The professional viewer feature will be available on PC using a special client that you can download in the Battle.net app. Overwatch League matches will be available in the viewer the Monday after each week concludes in the Americas and on Tuesday everywhere else. So get in there and watch your way. This looks like the successor to the World Cup viewer. That, of course, we saw during the World Cup. And now we have the Overwatch League equivalent here. But that's it for everything coming in Stage 3. Let's move on to the next story, which is a more Blizzard-related story, not necessarily just Overwatch-related, but there's a lot of stuff in here about Overwatch, so I want to talk about it. And this comes from Game Informer, and it is an interview with Blizzard president J. Allen Brack. Now, J. Allen Brack, of course, replacing the former longtime president Morhaime. I believe it's Mike Morhaime. Yes. That was late last year, that J. Allen Brack replaced Morhaime. J. Allen Brack, longtime worker on World of Warcraft, now the overall Blizzard president. And he did this interview with Game Informer, and he talked about a lot of things. But one of the biggest things that he focused on in terms of games was Overwatch. Overwatch got a very big focus being their most recent game and possibly their biggest game right now. Obviously, World of Warcraft is still massive. But one of the things that I wanted to focus on here is just some of the Overwatch specific stuff. But there's a lot more to it. If you want to check it out and read it for yourself, it is linked in the description down below. When asked about any plans that they would like to, have for moving some games forward, he said that the Blizzard brand is not mobile. They were asked about it, and they obviously know about the reception to Diablo Immortal. And what he said is we're not going to become a mobile-only company. We are still PC, and also we are focusing on console. And he said that console has been a huge part in the recent Blizzard history with Diablo and Overwatch, and now Diablo Switch coming out as well. We think those are great platforms for those games where it makes sense. And then continues on saying that mobile is a huge gaming platform. It's the largest gaming platform, so we can create some authentic, cool Blizzard experiences on that device. And, of course, they think they can, and they're going to focus on doing that without taking away from other sides. The next question that focuses heavily on Overwatch is about esports. And the question is, Blizzard has spent a lot of time in the last few years investing in esports as a venue, as an avenue for reaching players with your games. Do you feel like recent cutbacks in the publishing group is from an overreach in the esports realm? Do you think esports is still the future of Blizzard and Blizzard games? His response, great question. We think of esports as part of the product, part of the game experience, right? It's a way to engage as a fan with the game when you're not playing, similar to kind of a lot of these other things we're talking about, whether it be a linear media or books or comics or things like that. This is another way to experience our games. In the case of something like Overwatch, and I'm a big believer in esports and kind of what the future is. The thing is, the thing I did after BlizzCon last year was watch all the esports that I wasn't able to see during the show. I'm a huge fan of esports. I'm a huge believer in that as an engagement medium with the players and a way for players to kind of see from a competitive standpoint the best in the world. And from a streamer experience, just to see other people and other personalities kind of act with the game and the fans. In the case of Overwatch League, that's been a big investment for Blizzard. It's been a big focus to try to really do something that's never been done before. Create a league like a sporting league with a lot of parallels to real traditional sports, but in the esports environment and have city-based competitions and local competitions around essentially a game that's played over the internet. And to do that globally. We're super impressed and proud of how last season went. This season is already even larger than the last season, and we've added more teams. And then they talk a little bit about the Dallas homestand and how that went, and that he says he's a big believer in how the current generation is growing up and has grown up with streaming from day one, grown up with tablets, they've grown up with Twitch, and they've grown up with a lot of different media and a lot of ways to engage with content, and that he thinks that he wants them to watch it more like they would something traditional. They continue on to talk about something more, I guess, major, and that is developing further content within the current IPs and how they can maintain some of these brands that they have still today that they are continually growing upon. And Brack says, we've talked about how we've got more games in development than ever before, more games in development than in the entire history of the company. We also think that there are a lot of different types of games that can exist within the IPs that we have. If we think about the Overwatch IP, for example, we think about the Overwatch IP as being extremely large and extremely all-encompassing. Overwatch, the game people experience today, is just being a very small part of what the IP could be. We've seen with Warcraft, starting out as a real-time strategy game, having a massive MMO, having Hearthstone. There's been other projects that have been in the Warcraft experience that haven't made it to the market in the past, like Warcraft Adventures. We think that a lot of these franchises have the ability to have lots of different types of games, lots of different types of experiences. Having said that, it was 18 years between the introduction of Diablo, which is the last Blizzard IP, and the release of Overwatch. That's a long time to go without creating a new franchise, so we want to create more games in our franchises, and we do want to think about new franchises as well. So Overwatch, big focus of this interview, but if you want to check out the whole interview, it is in the description down below. I think this is an interesting thing that he touches on here at the end. It's not the end of the interview. There's still some stuff after that, but it's late in the interview. But he focuses on saying we could develop more games within this IP. And while I think that's great for something like Overwatch, you could do something more story-focused, potentially, or you could do a different type of game in the Overwatch universe. My one major complaint is that there's still so much that needs to be worked on with Overwatch as it is. In terms of quality of life improvements, improving the matchmaking system, adding features that are pretty much necessary at this point in time, whether that be roll queue, roll lock, things that would make the game fresher, things that would make people want to keep coming back to the game. The workshop was a great way to do that, but Overwatch itself needs more. And I think that if they start focusing on a new IP instead of just improving Overwatch as it is, that's a problem. And I also really hope that it's not a mobile game. I don't want an Overwatch mobile game. Some people might want an Overwatch mobile game. I believe mobile gaming is massive in China, but it isn't what I want. I don't want an Overwatch 2. I want Overwatch to become a fantastic game, more so than it already is. I want it to be a game that people want to keep playing. I want it to be a game that is bigger than ever. But I think that in order for that to happen, you can't be focusing on any other projects within the IP, but that is my opinion. Obviously, not something that everybody will agree with. From a more seemingly positive story from President Jalen Brack, we move on to a story that's not quite as positive when looking at the future of Blizzard. This one is a report. It is a rumor, and it comes from sources. I guess not really a rumor; it's more of a report. I usually try to avoid things that aren't official announcements because they're not always true. We saw that to be the case with this German Overwatch League team that was rumored that never came to be. So take this with a grain of salt, though I take it with a big grain of salt because it is most likely true as it follows in some patterns and some trends that we've been seeing recently with Blizzard. But the report is that more high-profile Blizzard staff are set to leave amid morale problems, which this follows Nate Nanzer departing as the Overwatch League's commissioner, as well as the layoffs that we saw earlier this year. And sources internal to Blizzard have confirmed that the reason for the latest round of departures is linked to low morale, especially surrounding the development of the esports divisions of their games. With one source saying people are really getting tired of working for Pete Vlastelica. The focus has become commercializing the esports titles instead of making good programs for the community. Many people internally are laying that on Pete, and it has crushed morale among the Call of Duty and Overwatch teams especially. Vlastelica is the current president and CEO of Activision Blizzard Esports, who joined the company in 2016 from Fox Sports. In his previous role at Fox, he oversaw their digital output and content creation. And some people at Blizzard feel this doesn't necessarily equip him to make decisions about what is best for esports, due to the noted differences between the markets. And they said right now there's a feeling that a lot of the senior management just don't understand esports, but there is no room for negotiating with these people. They are convinced their vision, which is more in line with televised sports, is the right way to go, and that it has just made people miserable. It's not clear exactly how many people will be leaving in the latest round of internal changes, but there were several other names of some experience on the list. While they have chosen to omit most names from the report, the resignation of Kim Fan, whose incredible tenure at the company has made her synonymous with Blizzard Esports for many, stood out as especially newsworthy. And they are waiting further comment on the story, and that would be Dex Urto are the ones waiting. So that is a very, very bad potential story for the future of Overwatch League and esports development. So from a very positive Jalen Brack saying, we're really developing this and we really want to see it succeed and we will continue to make sure it succeeds. We get to people are leaving because they don't think the management understands how to run an esports league. Very different stories, very different sides of the same coin. And it really means a lot of potential bad things to come for the Overwatch League as they try to commercialize instead of make a good league that is different from everything else, because it's an esport, and esports are different from traditional sports in many ways. But only time will tell what is going to happen and how things will change from here on out. We'll just have to wait and see, I guess. But for now, I'm going to end this video off there. If you enjoyed, consider liking and subscribing. If you want to check out any of the stories, as always, they're linked in the description down below. Let me know your thoughts on anything, but I'm going to get out of here. Once again, thank you for watching, and I will see you all next time. Bye-bye!